morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at the first Musharna card that we've seen in 5 years. Last time we had a Musharna, it was in Phantom Forces, which was released in November 2014. And this is going to be in our August 2019 set. Now, to be fair, that's half the length that Munchlax had to wait. Munchlax was waiting 10 years. But still, ladies and gentlemen, a 5-year wait, not insignificant. This was one of those Pokemon from Gen 5 that I really liked. Question is it actually any good? Well, it has been translated by the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And we should start off by having a look at the basics. 100 HP. Kinda low, to be honest with you. Can't even use Level Ball in Expanded, so it's literally one of the worst HPs that you can actually have. Not a great start. Retreat cost of 2 is awkward because you can't use a skateboard, but you don't get any extra bonuses. Weakness to Psychic, I'm going to be honest, you got Malamar decks running around, but it's kind of irrelevant because you got 100 HP. The one good thing is you are a Psychic Pokemon. You're hitting weakness against Buzzwole GX, and you can use stuff like Spell Tag, etc. So, at least it's a Psychic Pokemon. But what does it actually do? Well, for one colourless energy, and David has translated this as I bad, which I think is kind of cute, both players' active Pokemon are now asleep. During your next turn, this Pokemon's attacks do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. That's pretty nice. Now, your opponent can get out the active, we'll talk about all this in a moment. But for the time being, double sleep alone is pretty good. Now, it does put you to sleep, but you flip for sleep between turns, which means you can flip a heads after your turn and you'll wake up. Or you can flip a heads after your opponent's turn and you'll wake up. You've actually got 2 chances here to wake up naturally, so you've only actually got a 25% chance of still being asleep when it comes back to your turn. You could be. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I am saying that 3 out of 4 turns you're going to wake up naturally coming into your turn. Your opponent, however, only gets 1 chance, so there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to go into their turn, or they're going to go into their turn, and they're going to be asleep. And that's kind of fun. Now, one of the biggest issues we've had with sleep lately, a skateboard. Because the problem is, that lets them retreat even if they're asleep. Now, it only lowers their retreat by 1, so something like Zapdos would still need to have an energy on there as well, or they wouldn't be able to get out the active. Something like Jirachi, incidentally, would be absolutely fine. So it's annoying, but it might not work. But then, you've still got stuff like Guzma. Now, it's a weird saving grace here that this attack doesn't do any damage. Because if this attack did a nominal 10 damage, then your opponent would be able to Ace Roller out of it, and that would be very bad. The fact that your opponent cannot Ace Roller out of it is actually a huge advantage. I mean, admittedly, if you're that worried about Ace Roller nowadays, you can just play Mr. Mime, but still, it's a nice, handy bonus regardless. So you can put them to sleep. Putting them to sleep is good. Putting you to sleep is really not that big of a deal. Although you do have a retreat cost of 2, which means a skateboard won't work perfectly for you, but you'll have an energy on from the first attack, so I think we'll be alright. But now we get to do 100 extra damage for our attacks. And the one attack we've got here, Zen Headbutt, 1 colourless energy, 50 damage. Just a straight, flat 50 damage. Now, if you're just using this, it's not that bad, kind of. I mean, with a choice band, you do 160 to a Buzzwole. Okay, it's not a KO, but it's still a decent amount of damage. But that's not really what we're thinking of here. What we're really thinking of here is doing 150. Now, 150, I'm going to be honest, it's not that great. You're kind of getting Marshadow, but Marshadow's weak. So you're actually getting Marshadow with a choice band, even if you're not doing the extra 100. So maybe that's not the best example. But with a choice band, you're up to 180. So there's your Tapu Lele. There's your Dedenne. There's your Blacephalon. But then, of course, we could go, well, hang on a second, Shrine of Punishment. And Shrine of Punishment works better in this deck than it does in the vast majority of decks. It puts 1 damage counter on each EX and GX between turns. Well, the good news is that you're not playing an EX or a GX here. I suppose you could play some with it, but you certainly don't have to. But then you're putting them to sleep. So in theory, there's going to be a turn or two, hopefully a few throughout the game, where your opponent isn't really able to do anything. And if your opponent isn't able to do very much, then they do that thing, they evolve up a couple, attach an energy here and there, and then they basically pass the turn. The thing is, when they pass the turn with a Shrine of Punishment in play, that's 10 damage after their turn, and then inevitably 10 damage after your turn, and that makes a big deal. So although it's 180, and look, 180, I've shown you some of the numbers, 180 is good, 180 works. The thing is, this will often be more than 180, because you've got Shrine of Punishment running around. And now we're getting into the stage of being able to take down some of these bigger Pokemon. Yeah, Pikachu and Zekrom Tag Team GX, it's still going to take a little while. You're still going to need 6 extra damage counters from Shrine of Punishment in order to get a KO here. And look, even if your opponent isn't able to wake up and get out the active, they can still get rid of your Shrine of Punishment either by playing another stadium or by playing a field blower. These are all things we've got to worry about and be sad about and boo, hiss, etc. But there's only so many turns they're going to be able to get out the active. There's only so many stadiums they're playing. And I think there are going to be times you can get this to stick. And I think when you can get this to stick, it's going to be really, really good. Spread damage to Shrine of Punishment, and then you're doing 150 for a single energy on a single prize Pokemon. Let's be clear about this. That's phenomenal. Buzzwole does 160 for free coloured energy on a GX that gives up 2 prizes, and then can't use it next turn. Now, admittedly, Musharna here, it's kind of every other turn, because you need to use IBAD, and then next turn's then Headbutt does 150, but then the turn after that, you're back to 50. It's not like Metagross, for instance. Metagross, you can just keep going. So this is a one from Celestial Storm. Meteor Mash, 60 damage. During your next turn, it does 120. But then it always does 120 after the first. This is 50, 100, 50, 100, 50, 100, 50, 100. There are going to be turns where your opponent gets out the active, and when they do, that's going to suck. But if they can't get out the active, they're not always going to wake up, and this is going to be great. You could, incidentally here, use Sea of Nothingness to make sure that they don't get out of sleep when they evolve, but yeah, I really would rather have Shrine of Punishment here, if I'm honest with you. Now, I do want to take a quick look at Mana while we're here, for 2 reasons. Firstly, Mana is adorable. It's literally tucking in Eevee and Snorlax. This is some of the most adorable artwork we've had. Look at it. It's amazing. But actually, going further than that, the attack is not too bad. It's got Future Sight. Look at the top 4 cards of either player's deck and put them back in any order, kind of like Absol's got. Now, we like Absol for Doom News, don't get me wrong, but Future Sight's kind of fun as well. And this is for a single colourless energy on a basic Pokemon, rather than a darkness Pokemon on a basic Pokemon. And certainly, when you're in the early turns here, when you've not evolved up and you don't have your main strategy rolling, it's really not a bad idea to just sit there with Mana, fix your opponent's top deck. Now, I'm going to be mentioning this card a lot as we go forward into the next format, but we talked about Reset Stamp yesterday that gives your opponent a new hand of the number of cards equal to the number of prize cards they've got remaining. That was a bit of a mouthful. Probably could have phrased that more easily. So if they've got 1 prize card remaining, you can use Reset Stamp to go ahead and give them a 1-card hand, but then you can use Mana to fix their top deck here. And then make sure they definitely don't have a way to get out of the active. And then really take advantage with Musharna. I'm going to be giving Musharna free Wassies It's a fun card. It's an interesting card. It can be put into any deck because of the colorless energy. You're disrupting them, and then you're doing decent damage. It's not always going to work. Sometimes they're going to wake up. Sometimes they're going to get out the active. It's not 100% reliable. But when it works, you're doing 150 for a single energy. This is good, ladies and gentlemen. This is very good. But at this stage, I would very much like to know what you think about this. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. But please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of other games, and they don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.